Welcome back to the Mastering Video Marketing Podcast. I'm Tony Reale.
And I am Ben Carlson.
And today we are going to be talking about things we wish we knew before starting a video production company.
Yeah. I like to think of this as, when we had our first daughter, I had this concept of third child parenting, where it's like, all right, by the time you get to your third kid, parenting is way different. I just wanted to jump straight to that. It didn't happen, but I tried my best. I feel like that's kind of what we want to help impart here is that third child business opening. I don't think that's a thing.
Well, I mean, when a lot of people start a production company, it's almost always coming out of the hobby. It's like, I like to do video. Video is fun. Oh, somebody paid me to do video. Another person paid me to do video. Maybe I should do this as a job.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was half of the reason I started the company was because I was buying all this equipment. I was up to about $5,000 in gear, and I was like, you know what? I should just at least write this stuff off.
Yeah.
So I started my Creative Edge Productions, and I advertised a little bit, not a ton. And eventually, a couple of people hired me. And I've told the story before, but I remember on that very first job, I was heading down 2 hours south to Milwaukee. And there was an agency out of Chicago that hired me for a corporate video. And I've never done this scale of a project before. I've done little fiddly things.
Yeah.
But I showed up and I set up the lights and set up the camera, and I was backed up and let the agency director come in, and he's like, "This looks great, let's roll." And I was, so, and subsequently, they always say, like, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's just, facing it in the midst of that.
Yeah.
Honestly, video production and getting good at something, you never get to a point where you're not afraid you just get to a point where you've done this so darn many times that you almost have an answer for every problem.
Sure.
Problems always happen.
Yes.
And you just get really good at, all right, well, in this scenario, we did this. You're like MacGyver.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of that, we all love the creative process, but filmmaking, video production is more about just, here's a goal, and then how do we solve all the problems that come up till we get to the very end of the shoot day, and then do it again next.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that not a lot of people really, at least as they're aspiring to become a professional creator, it's, once I get to a certain point, I won't have these problems. And it's like, no, you're probably going to have more. The higher up your budget, the higher up the production value, you're going to run into more difficulties, more technical issues, more people issues where you're trying to manage a crew now instead of just yourself. The difference between a professional and the amateur professional mix is just, like you said, how comfortable you are responding to those challenges when they come up.
Exactly. I mean, even this morning, you and I were talking about a project we had recently done where there was a bunch of scope creep that leaked its way into it. And we realized after the fact, like, okay, these are the things that we need to do with this client to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Add more clarity, those types of things. But we're also realize, and we'll talk about this a lot in the podcast about, you can come immediately go to a client and be like, all right, these are all the things that, you're doing wrong or whatever like that. And that's a very fast way to lose a client.
Right.
Because you're there, I'll jump, this is one of the notes I have, but, you're there to make their lives easier.
Yes.
That's why they're hiring you. If you're making their lives more difficult, then they're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to do video in the first place. They might hire somebody else. They might just do it themselves.
Yeah.
So how easy you are to work with is much more important than the quality of your work.
100%.
So within that, like, think about, like, how can I take things off my client's plate, not put more on there? That isn't say work for free.
Sure.
You have to ride that line between just nickel and diming them all the way up, down the line. You don't want to be doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's a bad customer experience. But, when you're building a house, like, some people are like, well, I want the home builder to do everything, and I want to do nothing. And then there's other people like, just do the main floor, I'll finish the basement later on, or something like that. Everybody's a little different. And so that you need to have that conversation with your client to see how much do they want you to do, and or how much are they expecting you to do. And, obviously if they need to put more on your plate, then they need to pay for it.
Yeah.
But incorporate that into the process and not leave it out. So then either you're working for free, or suddenly later on they're going, why do I keep having to pay you more money? I thought this project was only going to be this much.
Which I think fundamentally comes back to how easy you are to work with. has a direct correlation to how good of a job can you do communicating your process, your needs, and their deliverables to the client before you even get going. In the instance that you were talking about, that was really the issue, is that we didn't have a lot of clarity going into it. And so the clarity was we were swimming through muddy waters until we got to the end. And then once the mud settled, we're like, okay, now this is what we can do. And we were left facing some things that we didn't plan on and some issues. And you're going to have that. And again, it just comes back to how do you handle that? How do you process it? And how do you work through it? But it all comes back down to that communication with the client. And the more open you can be and the more you can do to develop that relationship with the client, where you can have an open, honest conversation where, we've had clients where they've pushed back and said, oh, can you do this for us? I'm like, I would love to. And we can absolutely do it for you, but it's either outside the scope, you're going to have to pay more, or we need to find a different alternative to get the outcome that you're looking for. Yeah. But having that open, honest conversation, if you don't have a relationship with your client and you don't have that trust and that value of who you are and your creative process, your mind, then that's going to be much more difficult to have those difficult conversations when they come up.
And it's very important to keep in mind that they don't live in this world. Most of them don't. So, you need to make sure that you're giving clarity to them in the process. And because if they expect something that was never discussed, then yes, they need to pay for that. But if half of that is your fault because you didn't really explain to them the process that it is like, and then they're just going, well, I was expected this to be part of that.
Right.
You either have to be very tactful in explaining that to them, or you're going to have to absorb that. Yeah. Because or you can lose the client, those are all things. So, first category we're going to talk about is fundamentally and this is from a creative standpoint, but most of this has to do with client relations, frankly.
Yeah.
But the first one I just want to bring up is lighting is more important than your camera.
Yes.
Everybody chases the latest, greatest features and it's Super 35, interchangeable lens cameras, full frame cameras, Red, Sony's, all this kind of stuff. Listen, I can make any of my cameras look good with good lighting.
Right.
And I can make any of them look like crap with average or bad lighting.
Yeah.
Now, yes, the better the camera, the better the image for sure. But a crappy camera, well lit, will always outshine, the image will outshine a really amazing camera that just has horrible lighting.
Yeah.
So get good at that. If you're just starting off, we can always say, well, sound's really important and your editing to storytelling, all that kind of stuff is really good. But the thing that people will look at almost immediately is the quality of your imagery. Mm-hmm. Your portfolio matters. Yes. And, a thing we always say is clients don't care what you can do, they care what you have done.
Yeah.
And your portfolio is probably the most important thing to focus on when just getting started. We talk about social proof all the time in our training. Social proof is like the most important marketing tool that yet most people overlook.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people overlook it. If you are wanting to buy a product on Amazon or a Steam game or something like that, think about where do your eyes go first. You'll probably look at the product photo, the price, and then hop right down to the reviews.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody is. And yet in your marketing, so many people don't think that way.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, we're going to have this amazing explanation. No, people care more about what other people have to say about you and your product and your company more than what you have to say about it.
And what's really interesting, it's if you use Amazon, for example, you go on, you say, here's the product, the price, I'm going to go to the reviews. Those reviews are going to determine whether that price has the value that you need to buy it or not. If it's, oh my gosh, this is only $10. I thought it'd cost way more. And then you look at the reviews and it's absolutely worth this. Do not buy, do not buy, this thing was garbage, broke within 2 days. That $10, even though it was cheaper than you may have expected, that value, because of what other people that social proof didn't build up that price. Now, if you have one where you're like, oh man, this is $50. This is way more than I wanted to spend. But you look at the reviews and there's thousands of reviews saying absolutely worth the money. This is the last thing you ever buy. This is the solution that you're looking for. All of a sudden that value, even though it's a higher price proposition, that value, because of that social proof, is going to justify people spending more to get the higher quality product.
Right.
But they only know that if that social proof is there.
Exactly. So having a good portfolio is absolutely key to demonstrate the competency of your work, because you're going to get more work that's similar to your portfolio. And if you ever want to expand into a new level of work, you're going to have to expand your portfolio. So, one technique that we've talked about in the past is, we never recommend working for free, but a great time is, like some people do spec work. You probably hear like I'm going to do a fake BMW ad or an Apple ad or whatever. Spec work is great, but it's a lot of work for free. What you can do, and what we often would do, is we would kind of offer to kind of bump up our client's tier. So we're still getting, we might get a $10,000 project, but we'll do 15 or 20K worth of work. And we're not doing that all the time, but it was basically when we were ready to move up to the next tier, we would do that. And then we would continue doing that into other tiers, just so that we could get a good portfolio of that type of work. And then guess what? More of those types of clients came around. And then going back to the review thing, again, big tip. It's really easy to, once you get a handful of 5-star reviews on Google, you're like, great, I got 5 stars. That's all that matters. I thought I got a few 5 stars. Then the 5 star is the thing that matters. But when you have a production company or, whatever service that you are, if you have 10 5-star reviews next to somebody that has 80 5-star reviews, same 5 stars, but that 80 suddenly looks a lot more important.
Or even, what if, 80 reviews and a 4.7 star rating. I'm going to trust that person far more, because especially the more reviews you get, the less likely that they're all going to be perfect. Maybe, but you're going to have someone out there who's, I didn't like the color pen that they used to draft up the contract. Okay, I'm sorry. But people, again, once they go and they look at that social proof and they see all the people saying, absolutely worth it, pleasure to work with, these guys made it so easy, above and beyond what we expected. And you get so many people saying that versus the 5 people that were like, yes, this was great. Those numbers are going to definitely increase your value.
Exactly. And so early on, I wish we had done this more consistently early on. We did it a little bit, but just going and reaching out to your clients that you've had a good relationship with. Obviously, if they had a negative experience, maybe not reach out to them. Or find ways to make it a positive experience. But go out and say, hey, the email I send is just say, hey, I'll tell you a quick favor, and then I'll just say, hey, would you mind, if you had a second, leaving us a review on Google? And then you can go into your Google profile and copy and paste the review link, make it super easy for them so that it's a one-click thing. They don't have to go hunt for your Google page. And then just say, every review helps so much. Thank you. And most of them do. And usually at that point, the best time to do it is right after you've delivered the video and they are gushing over it and they're ecstatic. Do it. And then send that. And you will notice that your emails, your calls, everything will go up, because if you're prioritizing that, when somebody's looking at an apples to apples comparison, they see a production company that has 8 reviews and they see another one that has 40. That 40 review one is going to be a differentiator. The other thing is, if you get enough Google reviews, you can really start ranking outside your area too. If you go to a region or even a state level, and you have so many more reviews, Google is going to be like, well, that's the go-to place. It's not always the case. Sometimes like restaurants are more of a local category, but like things that are more regional, and you and your Googles can list the region that you work in. So make it as big as the area that you cover.
Or the area that you're willing to cover.
So, that's huge. I mean, and if there's nothing else that you do in your marketing initially, focus on your Google reviews.
And what's interesting is I find there are people out there that are seeking after that Google SEO. They're like, oh, we need to do search engine optimization. We need to do Google ads. Get the reviews first. Even if it's just a couple people, even if it's, if you're just starting out and you're saying, hey, I'll do your maternity shoot for $50 or whatever it is. Heck, even if you're doing some for free and you're just starting out, I would never say I'm doing it for free. Just say I'm doing it for the experience. If I do this, would you write me a positive review? And then do the project, then take on the project. Again, because now you're not working for free, now you're working for your advertising. And instead of paying money for Google ads or Facebook ads, you're paying yourself in advertising for the time that it takes to do that shoot.
Exactly. So next thing on the list we have is lower paying jobs are typically more stressful than higher paying jobs, up to a point.
Up to a point.
And that point is like usually, at least for us that we've experienced, once you kind of pass the 200K threshold, you get into a whole different level of different clients and agencies and project man and whole nother thing. So, you know, we typically don't do much past the 200K mark, and I'm fine with that. Now that's more like on a project basis. We do have some retainer based work where we're working with a client for a year or so. That adds up to beyond that. But when you're doing a single project, I've worked on some of those really big ones, and they're a heck of a lot of stress. But you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, people that are paying a couple $100, maybe $1,000.
Yeah.
And if it's, you know, depending on the company, typically if that's their budget, that's a lot of money to them.
Correct.
And they expect the moon for that.
Right.
I get it. I mean, like, think about you. If I suddenly, you know, try to get you to hand over $1,000 for nothing.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a lot of money just for an average person versus for a business that could be very little.
Yeah.
Like you've told stories about like companies that you work with in your previous jobs where like they, you know, if it's under a certain dollar amount, like under 60K or something like that, they don't even think about this. They just,
I've seen companies throw out $120,000, $125,000 and in parts that were just sitting on the shelves because they were taking up space. Still perfectly fine. Still they weren't trying to resell it. Just it's taking up space, get rid of it. Or hey, you know, we have a consulting service. It's under 10 grand. No approval needed. Just if it's going to save us some money, sure, just write it off. I love those people. But yeah, you get to the smaller little mom and pop shops where $2,000 was their entire annual marketing budget, and you're asking for one video. They're going to be fine tooth comb, expecting the world for it, and you're going to end up giving them a $2,000 product, which is going to be a lot different than a $20,000 project.
Right. And what that one video or series of videos can actually do for them, you know, just making the video is never enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've talked a ton about that. One of the reasons that we've transitioned into more of a video marketing agency is because we dealt with so many clients that just didn't know what to do with these videos. We'd make an amazing video and it would just sit on the third page of their website on the About Us page and the bottom. And then they're like, why did this only get 12 views? And I spent 15 grand on it.
Right.
Well, because you're just not using it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's one of the reasons that like we often say, you know, it's very easy to fall into the trap as a creative to speak in the language of creative.
Yeah.
You know, okay, here's the concept that we're thinking about. It's going to be so amazing. It's going to be really cool. And then there's the music and it's going to have these visuals and it's going to make it feel like this.
Yeah.
Shoot it with a drone and a gimbal and motion control and 8K and it's just going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And, you know, some people get it.
Yeah.
Some people have that creative mind. Most people that you're dealing with at a corporate level don't.
Yeah.
They are usually the marketing directors. They are HR. They are business owners. They are dollars and cents people, not creative. That's why they hired you. If they did have a creative brain, they probably would be doing a lot of this themselves.
Sure.
So when you speak creative to these people, you are speaking a different language.
Yep.
And maybe they can visualize it if you're doing a great, especially if you're storyboarding and style sheeting it and writing it. But even beyond that, the creative doesn't matter if it's not serving the main goals and results that the company needs from that video. I'm not saying what they want. You know, how many times has there been like this really amazing advert for a company that we see on, you know, during the Super Bowl or whatever, and we like, that was really cool. I don't even remember what the hell the company was.
Right.
Sexy video.
Yeah.
It did nothing to help me remember the brand.
Right.
Great. I remember the video. And you know what? It's probably going to win a whole bunch of advertising awards.
Right.
And every other creative agency is going to pat each other on the back and give each other awards and say, that was amazing.
The Burger King moldy burger is one of the prime examples where, you know, they had the moldy Burger King burger versus her pristine 6-month-old McDonald's burger. And their whole idea was we use fresh things so they spoil. So got to get it fresh. And it did. It won all sorts of awards. And The money pinchers or the money counters were like, yeah, but it didn't really increase sales. Like, it wasn't an effective campaign. It was a cool campaign. It was a great idea. It was very outside of the box. It was a very unique idea. Cool concept, very well done. But it didn't make the company any more money. So that's great for that one project. But if you want that company to come back to you and say, hey, we want to do our next project with you, why? Give them a reason. And the only reason that that's going to happen is if they see a return on that investment somehow.
Right. And so you need to be focusing on the results of your content that you're going to make for them, not just, hey, this is going to be really cool or really interesting, or this is my chance to flex my creative muscles and show off what I'm capable of. And that's why it's really important to not let a project be your baby.
Yes.
I know you probably hear the term all the time, but it is a thing that is vitally important to learn at a very early period in your career. The sooner you can get over that, the better you will be. Because, and I'll be honest, like, there are versions of client projects that we have director's cut on our website in our portfolio, and not the client cut, because they chopped it up and made it a very different feeling tone. So, and that's fine if that's, going to benefit them and that's what they want. We always have the unofficial term, and as long as the check clears, we will give our clients feedback. We'll tell them why we think that this is going to be a better model, but we're also going back to what we just talked about earlier. We're not going to make things difficult. We're not going to be disagreeable, because it's just all you're doing is making it less beneficial for the client to want to work with you.
Right.
But that said, there's going to be times where things are going to get hacked up. They're going to be changed. What you wanted a video to be, it ends up being some weird, deformed version of the goal that you had. And the sooner that you get over that, the better. But that's why going at it from a creative perspective and only seeing the beauty of what the story could have been is not the healthiest approach.
Right.
We need to be going after what is the results the clients are wanting to have. So when we talk about results, it could be increase in sales. It could be website traffic. It could be lead generation. It could be
awareness,
brand awareness. There are multiple things in each type of ad or video or marketing strategy, whether you're doing an ad, whether you're doing organic content, whether you're doing, you're supporting a lead generation campaign. So for example, you might have the beginning of a thing that would be the ad that people would see, and then that leads them into a sales funnel process that might have some sort of a lead magnet, whether it's an ebook or a webinar or something like that. All of that needs to support the end goal of what we're trying to accomplish. And maybe that means shooting something super cinematic, but maybe that also means shooting 30 shorts, in a day, and to then create a variety of trust-based content that then people can get to know the person better and establish them as an expert in their field. That matters. And determining those results that you're trying to accomplish is a very, very important factor, way that more important than how pretty the image is and how great the concept is.
Which comes back to having that discussion and having that relationship with your client before you ever press the little red button. Having that end goal in mind before you start shooting is going to make so much difference all the way through the editing process. We've had moments where we've gotten to the end edit of the video and we've sat down, we're like, we could make this better. I know there's a few tweaks, we could spend a couple more hours and we could do this. And the metric that we use is it going to make it, visually it's going to be better, but is it going to make it more effective? And the answer is no. It's just as effective as it is. It looks beautiful. I'm willing to put my name on it. Send it out. Don't waste your time, because we knew exactly what the client was looking for. We knew the expectation. We had that all very clearly laid out. And so we were able to confidently say, this is going to be the most effective video. Making it a little bit prettier is not going to make it any more or less effective.
Right. Especially when you're dealing with like social media content. It's like, to a certain extent, a lot of content today is somewhat disposable, and, frequency and searchability and relevancy and applicability, all those things are more important than pretty. And I don't want to say quality, because quality in the message is still a thing.
Right.
But like the quality of the imagery may not be as important as everything else that we just talked about. And if you are looking for more guidance in this area, we have a whole free online masterclass that you can check out. It's videopathfinder.com. This is the system that we use when we walk our clients through how to create effective social media content strategy, and we're giving it away for free. So you can check it out at videopathfinder.com, completely free to check out. But within all of that, you know, the last thing we'll mention is a thing that you've heard all the time, and yet I still want to iterate it because yet it's so easy to forget. And it's that triumvirate of cheap, fast, good.
Yeah.
And that we know about it.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. It's a thing that's thrown around in the creative, but at some fundamental level, you need to find a way to incorporate that into your proposal so that it's understood. Because even today, we still have clients that are like, we want it to be this quality.
Yeah.
We want it to be, this price, and we need it next week.
Yep.
It always happens.
Yeah.
And, we always joke, like, your lack of planning does not mean this is my problem to deal with. But nonetheless, we're still trying to create a good customer experience for them.
Yeah.
So you have to get really good at riding that line between a client being overly demanding and with their expectations, and also you not being such a pain because of that experience.
Yeah.
Like, they want to, when they greenlight, when they're ready to write that check, they're now wanting results tomorrow.
Yes.
Because it's just money out of the bank. Think about you. Like, say if I said to you, all right, we're going to, you need a new car.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be $5,000. And then in 6 months, I'll get you your car.
Right.
But what? No.
Do I get anything in the meantime? Nah, it takes a little bit to get a car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yet that's what the world of creative is. It
Yeah.
takes a while for us to, especially if we're going through the full process that we go through of market research and ideation and split testing and all the other things that we go through to get to the best message. That takes a lot more time than just us going, let's try that idea.
Yeah.
Here you go. Let's just do it quick. That it takes time. And so, it's like, more like building a house than anything. Nobody expects like, all right, I want to build my house and we'll move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there are lots of other consumer interactions where if it took you 2 months, 3 months, 6 months to get a thing, that would be a negative experience.
Right.
So a lot of times we will encourage or we'll try to find ways to get immediate results for our clients.
Get something.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if it's social media content, it's really good to define like tiered levels. So before we get to the really high-end production, we'll come back and maybe we'll do a photo shoot with the client to do some social media posts. Maybe we'll do a lower-end video shoot to get some talking head stuff. There's lots of different ways to approach it, but if you can try and give your clients some sort of immediate interaction, whether that's, again, last week we talked about, different AI tools, and like Firefly's AI is a great meeting note-taking app. And if you're having like a big meeting with your client, and we've had a lot of great discussion, we've come to a lot of good ideation, and then you use a tool like Firefly's to create the notes from it, and then you can put that into a nicely polished, go on Canva or InDesign or whatever, and pretty it up.
Yeah.
And then you give them that as kind of like here's what we talked about. Just give them something of a nice polish.
Right.
Now they're getting something tangible that they can interact with, as opposed to just, a couple of emails back and forth. Like, try and make that presentation better. I always say, like, people are paying us thousands of dollars for thin air.
Right.
We're
a bunch of zeros and ones.
Right. We're giving them, results is the goal.
Yeah.
But they're effective. So the more tangible stuff you can give a client and allow them to not necessarily, if you have to print it off and have that feel, but just so they can feel like they have something to look at and interact with, that's always going to make that experience a lot better.
And it just comes back down to building trust. It's that idea that they're entrusting you with their investment, and you are respecting that and responding quickly and effectively. And here is something I appreciate your trust. I appreciate you believing in me to do this project. Here's something that will get you something, and this will help further our relationship as we go down the road. And it works volumes to be able to build those relationships.
All right. Pop Culture Corner. Well, we have a fun Pop Culture Corner
did
this
a
week.
thing.
We did. We were out in Costa Mesa, California, last week, and whilst out there, Ben had the brilliant idea of trying to find, see if we can watch Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer. I think it's Oppenheimer. I say it wrong every time. So
Oppenheimer.
if you could correct us in the comments, that would be. We need the help.
Yeah. We were out there and we wanted to see it, and Ben found that, okay, well, if you're going to see it, we got to see it in IMAX. If we're going to see it in IMAX, we should see it in 70 mil IMAX.
And there are only 60 theaters in the world that have that capability. 30 of them are in the United States, and 5 of them are in LA. So, I mean, it is a very limited number of showings where people actually get to experience the film in the way that Christopher Nolan intended.
And if you're going to go to LA, there is one theater that you should go to.
One theater that has the gravitas to be able to pull it off. And it is not the Santa Ana. No offense, Santa Ana IMAX. But we went to the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard. Holy cow.
It was a treat.
Holy cow. It's something I've seen many times from the outside. I've seen it on TV. I've walked past it, been on Hollywood Boulevard before. And it was always kind of like, oh, that'd be neat. That'd be neat to see. But again, you said, when you're out in California, there are so many things to do. You're in LA, that you can do the beach, you can do the mountains, you can do the food, you can do any number of things. I'm not going to go watch a movie for 3 hours unless it's Oppenheimer in IMAX, 70 millimeter, in the theater that so much of Hollywood was showcased on. And it was a unique and very cool experience to be able to experience that level of filmmaking, that level of artistry in a place that is in a hall, in a space dedicated to it. And that really has been a shrine. That's what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
In a shrine for movies.
Exactly. And, obviously Oppenheimer is a period film.
Yeah.
And so going to that kind of experience and being in that theater that really, they've updated it obviously from a technology standpoint, but the aesthetic is very, very...
They've been very intentional. This is what surprised me. The concession stands were like budget movie concession stands. They have limited menu, limited things. But once I was up there, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, they don't have a ton. And then I was like, oh no, this is perfect. This is exactly the way it needed to be, because the aesthetics inside have not been changed. They have been very deliberate, it seems, in maintaining the feel and aesthetic. It's not run down. But it has that history. It has that feeling of walking back in time and experiencing film in another time and genre, or time and era that has long gone by. And you have so many places that are the space age, and they got the 300 seat stadiums that go way up. And this isn't that. It is intimate for as large as it is, and it is. Yeah, it was a masterpiece on so many levels.
Yeah. It did feel like walking in there, you were kind of going back in time, which really fit the movie very well.
Yeah.
Even like going down to the bathroom, they had like
lounge.
Yeah, they had like a lounge area. They had a seating area outside the bathroom, and it was like a bigger bathroom. Yeah, it was really interesting. It's like that's how these used to be.
Right.
It's half waiting for somebody to walk by and hand me a towel.
Yeah, a man with like in the red little blazer.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's actually talk about the movie.
That was just the movie going experience, which if you're out there, if you were finding a way out there, I highly recommend it. It is worth, and it $25. Like, it wasn't that much more of a movie going experience. Now, with 5 people, yes, that is an investment, but
very worth it.
Worth it. So worth it. Yeah.
All right. So the movie. All right. Again, spoiler-free review. That's all. We always try to do spoiler-free in our reviews. Yep. So overall thumbs up.
Oh yeah,
love the movie. What I remarked is like I still haven't seen Dunkirk. I've seen most of Christopher Nolan films, but this was, I realized, the first Christopher Nolan film that I've watched that was essentially based on a real story.
Sure.
Like Dark Knight, Prestige, Inception, any of those films are very stylized, very fictional.
Correct.
And then so to see his visual style be realized through a realistic world, was really fascinating. Like, I thought, the cinematography was gorgeous, but what interested me was the sound design did more storytelling than I'm used to in most films.
Sure.
Usually the sound, you kind of tune out a sound design. It's like again, same thing with cinematography. Sometimes the cinematography is there, and any good cinematographer will say like, oh yeah, if you notice my work that I'm doing the wrong job, yeah, like my work should blend into the background, and it should just be there to tell the sound, which I agree with.
Yep.
Up to the point where there's sometimes that like the visuals need to be like a cinematic masterpiece of a frame. Like Zack Snyder is notorious for this, like to a fault. Like almost all of his movies are just like gorgeous shot after gorgeous shot after gorgeous shot, just strung together.
Yeah.
Like if you take like Roger Deakins, for example, like that's a better example of like, you'll have the cinematography there, and then occasionally you'll have just a couple of those super stylized cinematic shots that keep you in the world of like, this is a film and this is like the opening shot of Skyfall,
Right.
Or like the silhouette of the house burning in the background. Like those are purposefully gorgeous shots.
Yeah.
It's not blending away or anything like that. That I see that's not going to not be seen.
Sure.
And so in Oppenheimer, the sound design stepped out in its own storytelling in a way that I just don't see that often.
Yeah.
And that was interesting to me. I thought that was its own, like you had all these elements coming together. It's almost like when you're watching a band.
Yeah.
And they're playing a song that you've heard 1,000 times, and it's a really good song, and they're like, all right, and now we're gonna have a drum solo, and then now a guitar solo, and then bass solo, and it's like each of these band members that are normally playing together and just really cohesive, now we're gonna let that person shine for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I felt like. Each of these elements of the movie got a chance to shine uniquely in its own.
Yep, absolutely. And just to plug this really quick, if you haven't seen it, and you haven't, or if you have seen it, if you have a Dolby Atmos theater nearby, even if you don't have IMAX, the 70 millimeter, which most people don't, seeing it with the Dolby Atmos system, if you can find a theater that's a lot more readily available, a lot of theaters are upgrading to that, that would be worth it, because the Atmos, or that atmosphere, was almost its own character, where there were moments that, I mean, obviously, I hope this isn't a spoiler there, it's all about bombs. So like, but the feeling, there's a growl, a palpable presence to the sound outside of just auditory, oh, that sounds pretty, but the feeling of it, I think it was served very well with the Dolby Atmos. So there's a little plug. If you can't see it in 70 millimeter IMAX, at least see it with Dolby Atmos, because it is going to be a different movie going experience.
Yeah. It was great. Loved it. It's a very heavy movie though. Like yeah, you're gonna hold that weight for a bit. We had one of our crew that had seen it, and he has discovered that he has anxiety problems that the movie amplified. So if you're prone to anxiety, that might be something to steer away from.
It was funny. We had about a 40-minute drive across LA, and it was at night, so LA was shining beautifully, and we were rocking out, and we had the music going, and just loving life after some Korean barbecue. And then we got in the car on the ride home, and it was silent. We had no music, and we had about 45 minutes coming back where we just kind of
contemplated life. And
we were discussing the movie, but it was definitely a different, in the best way. I think art is meant to make you feel something, and no knock on the MCU or the DCU, but the big explosions and bad guys and capes, and that makes you feel some things. When Thanos stabs his finger, that makes you feel something. But this was at another level. And what I appreciated about Christopher Nolan's direction in this is he made it an art film. It was a spectacle that enveloped this gripping story that went in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. It focused less on the war. I think you summed it up best when it was they focused on the how.
Well, originally they were wondering, like, the movie timeline kind of hops back and forth as they're telling kind of multiple story threads, but it starts off initially when they first were able to discover to split the atom, and they realized that this could be weaponized. So then they're trying to figure out if they could do it.
Yeah.
Then it migrates into how, okay, we feel like we can do it. Now, how do we do it?
Yep.
And then the later part of the movie is, should we do it?
Yeah.
And should we have done it? And should we do more of it? Like, advancing into higher levels of the bomb technology. So there's that constant weight of like the pressure, again, not too much of a spoiler, but like the knowing that this technology exists and can be developed. There was suddenly the arms race of, if the United States doesn't do it, then Germany or Russia or somebody else is going to do it. So even though they had moral implications, the morality of not being the first country to develop it was more heavy than the morality of doing it and having introduced that into the world.
Or was it? And so that's what it leaves you wrestling with. And it does it in just a beautiful way. Beautiful, beautiful way. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fun episode.
Thanks
for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us along, and check out videopathfinder.com as well if you haven't already.
Yeah. Thank you so much.